Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today it is time to do a book review of some of the most anticipated book releases, as well as some really popular books that I've finally gotten around to reading. This has been one of the best reading weeks that I've had because I've either been laughing hysterically or crying my eyes out, so let's get into it. The first book that I read was Till Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn, and it is one of the funniest books that I've ever read. Scotty Price, who's the FMC, recently gets a new job where she is the only woman on a team filled with guys named like Brad and Chad. She's expecting a bachelor type atmosphere, but she's surprised to learn that everyone on the team is happily married. And in order to impress her boss, Scotty mentions her non existent husband. Scotty panics and makes up a lie that she's in an unhappy marriage, to which her boss has a perfect solution for, which is enrolling Scotty and her non existent husband into therapy, as well as a marriage summer camp. Scotty has to find a fake husband immediately to fake divorce her. Fortunately, Scotty's best friend sets her up with his brother, who loves to improv and is also a really young millionaire, and they wind up stuck together for the entire summer, doing hilarious couples challenges, fake fighting, and having non-stop banter. I love this book so much that I finished it in one day and was dying laughing. Funny parts aside though, it was also just super romantic and really enjoyable. 5 stars, no question about it. The next book that I read was Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood, who is one of my favorite authors. Maya Kilgore, who is the FMC, is still in the process of figuring her life out, but one thing that she does know is that she has a crush on her brother's best friend. And when her brother decides to get married, Maya and Connor Harkness, who is the MMC, are stuck together for over a week, and they have to face their complicated attraction to each other. Out of all of the books that I read this week, this was my least favorite. It was still a really good rom-com book, but I'm just not the biggest fan of an age gap romance, with Maya being 23 and Connor being 38. A big part of the conflict in this book was because Connor also struggled with the age gap between them, and therefore would always try to create distance between them. It's giving Grumpy Sunshine summer romance, but their chemistry is definitely there, and I still think this is a must-read summer romance from Ali Hazelwood. The next book that I read was Metal Singer by Rachel Schneider, which I know is not a new book, but it's one that I've had my eye on for a very long time. I finally read it after seeing it in Barnes & Noble, and this is a very high stakes and fast-paced fantasy romance about Bryn, who is the FMC and has lived her entire life among the Alaha training to be a guard, and she's been waiting for a chance to go to the annual market hosted by the Kenta, which is the kingdom that has exiled her and her people to lives at sea. But while she's at the market, Bryn has an altercation that leads to her accidentally breaking a century-long peace treaty. Bryn soon realizes that there are a lot of secrets involving her, and she has several intense interactions with Acker, and these slow burn interactions between them are so addicting. The plot twist in the story and the cliffhanger at the end were totally unexpected, and I need the second book. This book is definitely going in my top tier fantasy romances. Next I read Trust Me Always by Megan Brandy. This is the third book in her series, but her first one, Say You Swear, is definitely my favorite. This book is a friends to lovers fake dating, and it was giving love triangle, and I'm not sure if it was in a good way. Basically, Cameron, who's the FMC, breaks up with Alistair after realizing that he was using her in order to get close to her friends on the football team, and Alistair develops real feelings and tries to win her back. But Cameron, who is really hurt by his betrayal, tries to create a buffer zone between them by fake dating one of the guys on the football team who is also her friend. But while they're fake dating each other, their feelings start to become real. But one thing that threw me off about this book was that Alistair was not actually a bad person, and I think Cameron could sense that because she was constantly torn between these two guys. And this was a really intense romance. The writing style is really good and the romance is really sweet, but this book just isn't one that I'm crazy about. The next book is Releasing 10 by Chloe Walsh, and never have I wanted to physically throw up from reading a book after finishing it, but the intense emotions that I was feeling while reading this book could not be ignored. It is the 6th book in her Boys of Tommen series, and it's about Lizzie Young, who is one of the characters that I never liked. That is, until I read her point of view, and now she is one of my favorite characters, if not the favorite. She has gone through so much and carries so much burden and trauma, and the one person who is always supposed to be in her corner is Hugh Biggs, who is her childhood crush crush, best friend, and soulmate. But the ending of this book shook me so bad. I desperately need to know how this ends because Lizzie and Hugh belong together and I cannot see it any other way. This romance book, and honestly the entire series, is so intense and most definitely not for the weak. I absolutely love this book and bawled my eyes out, but probably read at your own risk. The last book that I read was The Things That We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. I cried so hard while reading this book, but the ending was absolute perfection. I put this book off for so long because it just didn't seem as romancy as some of the books I usually read, but I regret so much not reading this book sooner. It's about 28-year-old Georgia Stanton who just has the most brutal divorce, and it's her responsibility to find an author to finish her great-grandmother's unfinished book. And on this quest to find an author, she meets Noah Harrison, who is a super good-looking writer that she absolutely does not get along with. And this book is told alternating between Georgia and Noah's point of view, and Scarlett and Jameson, who are the people that the book is about as their story evolves. And this is the deepest romance book that I've read in a really long time that blends both banter and real-life problems mixed with such a good romance. I highly recommend this book to everybody, and it is definitely worth the hype. Those are all of the books that I've read this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I am so unbelievably grateful, and I'll see you in the next one.